Hey guys, it's Rachel, and today I will be talking about going vegan for an entire week. This was a fun dietary experiment that I wanted to try for a week to see if this would change anything about our lifestyle, our energy, and how we felt about ourselves over the course of a week. And by no means were we perfect vegans at all. There were many days where we cheated or had meals that were questionably vegan, or, sometimes I just outright ate a donut that I knew wasn't vegan, so there were a lot of different factors going on. But essentially, this is me and my family's best attempt at going vegan for a week.
To start off the week, we're going to do the most important thing, which is shopping in preparation for Vegan Week. So I hit up a couple different grocery stores in order to get all the ingredients that I needed in order to make the meals for Vegan Week. So one of my favorite stores is Sprouts. I also really love TJ's or Trader Joe's, and I'll also frequent Safeway or Ralph's pretty often as well. The nice thing about Sprouts is that there's an entire section dedicated to vegan food, and they also label all their plant-based products with this green tag so you can see it really easily. I made sure to pick up the veggies that I needed and also some sweet treats and snacks like ice cream, obviously. And once I got all the ingredients I needed for the week, went ahead and loaded up, checked out, and then proceeded to start and embark on our vegan week. Alrighty, so for day one, we are going to start off with acai bowls for lunch. And just to preface this video, I don't normally eat breakfast, so the first meal you'll see every day is typically lunch. So in order to make the acai bowls, I just combined some frozen bananas, an acai blend packet, as well as some Oatly, and I just kind of put it in my Vitamix and blended it together. I really like my acai mix to be very chunky, so that's why it's not very runny, as you can see. I decided to top my acai bowls with a Perfect Bar, as well as some Love Crunch granola. Special shout out to Love Crunch for sending me a bunch of their products. I am not sponsored, but they wanted me to try some of their products because I've had a good experience with some of their granola in the past, and I absolutely love them, and I would highly recommend the dark chocolate and peanut butter flavor. In the afternoon, I usually get a little bit snacky, so I went ahead and got some popcorners, which are vegan, which is great. They are so addicting, so be very careful. Alright, going full steam ahead, we are going to dive into our dinner recipe. So I'm going to start off by slicing some Yukon Gold potatoes, tossing them in oil and sprinkling them with everything but the bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's, and popping that into the air fryer to make like potato crisps. In the meantime, we are going to start prepping for my absolute favorite recipe from Minimalist Baker, which is her General Tso's tofu. So to start off, we're going to go ahead and make the sauce, which is a combination of soy sauce, sesame oil, maple syrup, chili garlic sauce, and a bunch of different things. We'll also slice up some firm tofu, season it a bit with soy sauce, sesame oil, and some chili garlic paste, toss it, and then go ahead and put it in a bag. And then we're going to add some cornstarch until a white gummy layer forms around all of them. And then we'll go ahead and saute them in a pan until we get a nice crispy brown golden sort of appearance on all of them. Pour that sauce that you made on top earlier, add some onions, some sesame seeds, and you are good to go. This is a delicious, delicious recipe, and I cannot recommend it enough. So to go with our potatoes and our tofu, I'm going to go ahead and roast some broccoli. Pretty simple. I just toss it in olive oil, add salt and pepper, and roast at a pretty high temperature because I like to get those nice burnt pieces or the nice crispy edges, as you could say. Then go ahead and serve with some white rice. So get a little bit of that tofu, get a little bit of that broccoli, and some of that potato, and voila, you got a solid dinner. Now we're gonna dive into day 2 of veganism, which I actually sort of prepped the night before, but I made overnight oats, and specifically I made Oats, which are zucchini oats. So these are chocolate zucchini oats made with shredded zucchini, some cocoa powder, ground flax meal, cinnamon, and just instant oats. And I just stirred all that together with a little bit of maple syrup and Oatly, let it sit overnight, and then the next day you are ready to add your toppings and dig in. My trick to stirring overnight oats is to actually use a chopstick or something like a knife because it's just easier to mix everything up. So let that sit overnight, and then tomorrow we can do toppings. So for toppings, you can get really creative and do whatever you like. I just topped with some of the fruit that I had in my house, which was raspberries and some toasted walnuts, as well as my all-time favorite crunchy almond butter from Trader Joe's. And the nice thing about this recipe is that you can get a little bit of your veggies in there, but also satisfy your sweet tooth with a little bit of chocolate. Is it dinner already? I guess so. We are going to start off dinner by soaking this vegan soy tofu that I found at a Korean market. Then we'll get started on the main dish of the night, which is Bali rice bowls. We are going to start by taking our sweet potato, tossing it in olive oil, adding a little bit of salt, and then slicing up our firm tofu and laying that out on the same baking sheet as well. In a food processor or a blender, we are going to make the world's most mind-blowingly delicious peanut sauce I have ever tasted in this world. You'll put about half of that peanut sauce on top of the tofu and then roast it in the oven. As for that vegan soy tofu that we made earlier, I just kind of stir-fried it with some mushrooms and Napa cabbage. Then once the tofu has come out of the oven along with the sweet potatoes, you are ready to serve. So you can serve this with some fresh sunflower sprouts and avocados, and then just drizzle everything with some of that peanut sauce, and that makes it just 10 times better. Moving on to day 3 of veganism and what I ate. So for lunch, I got creative and I actually made a pumpkin mac and cheese, which is also a recipe from Minimalist Baker. Everything that you need just goes into a blender, including some pumpkin puree, sage, cornstarch, salt, pepper, a little bit of pumpkin pie spice, but also the most important thing, which is nutritional yeast, which will give it that cheesy, nutty flavor. I also used Follow Your Heart Parmesan, but I cannot say that I was the biggest fan of that. And then to loosen up the mixture, you're going to add a little bit of Oatly as well. Then pour that sauce over a stovetop, let it thicken up with that cornstarch, and then go ahead and throw in your cooked pasta. I really love rigatoni, so that is what I went for here. Then to finish off your pasta, you can garnish it with some sage that you can kind of put in some hot oil on the pan to kind of crisp it up a bit, and then go ahead and dig in. This is a really creamy and delicious recipe. In the afternoon, I had a little bit of a craving for something sweet, which I almost always do, so I decided to make these salted peanut butter oatmeal bars from Healthy Radiance, and I've heard lots of good things about this recipe. People rave about it on Instagram, so I was like, gotta try it. It's vegan, it looks good, and it was pretty simple for everything to come together. I mean, it includes peanut butter and chocolate chips, so I don't really see where you can go wrong here. It just seemed like a recipe set up for success. And then after you bake it off, the last thing you need to do is top with some chocolate drizzle, which I sort of made instead of by just melting the chocolate. I added a little bit of coconut oil to loosen it up a touch, just to make it a little bit more runny and easier to drizzle over the bars. And then you'll finish it off with some Malden flaky sea salt. I had really high expectations and high hopes for these blondies, but once I tried them, I realized that they were just really sweet and kind of dense, so they're good, but nothing crazy. So I don't really understand all the hype around it, but I mean, they're not bad. Okay, on to dinner time. We are going to make a vegetable yellow curry. I know the seasoning packet says it's for chicken, but I'm not adding any chicken, and I checked the ingredients, so we should be good to go. So I just added a bunch of veggies, added that yellow curry paste, and I let it boil for a little bit, topped with some cilantro and lime juice, in addition to rice, and you got a simple and delicious dinner. On day 4, I started the day wanting something to drink, so I went ahead and made something kind of reminiscent of my childhood, which is strawberry milk. Super simple recipe. All you have to do is mash up some strawberries, add a little bit of sugar, make a puree, add it to a cup, add in some Oatly, stir it up, and drink, because that is some delicious stuff. As for lunch, I went with a really basic basic lunch, which is avocado toast. But I will say that I used some fresh sourdough bread from Tartine Bakery in San Francisco. So this is really quality, delicious bread. Then I topped it off with some ripe avocado and, of course, everything but the bagel seasoning, as you've probably heard of by now. For dinner, I made one of my family's favorite recipes of all time for this week, which was a vegan pizza. So I picked up the Trader Joe's garlic herbed pizza crust, rolled it out between 2 sheets of parchment paper, made my own homemade tomato sauce, and then also stir-fried some mushrooms, onions, and bell peppers to go on top of the pizza. In order to assemble the pizza, go ahead and, put your pizza sauce, lay it out, make a nice bed, and then go ahead and top with your vegan cheese. So I used a variation of cheeses. I used Miyoko's cheddar cheese, as well as the Follow Your Heart Parmesan cheese. And I went hard with the cheese because I am a girl who loves her cheese. So I started off with a base of Parmesan, then moved on to an additional layer of Miyoko's cheddar cheese. And I will say that vegan cheese is still not my favorite, but it's getting there. And then I topped it off with the sauteed mushrooms, onions, and red bell peppers. And I kind of charred it to give it a little bit more of a smoky flavor on the pan, which I think went really nicely with the pizza. And then the very last thing was that I put some basil on top of my pizza, but I realized in retrospect that I should have added this closer towards the end when the pizza was almost done baking. But digging in, the pizza was delicious. The crust was the perfect consistency, as well as the sharp acidic tomato paste, as well as the vegan cheese and all the toppings together. Lunch for day 5 of veganism was an epic fail of massive proportions. I tried to make almond butter blueberry pancakes, but I think where I went wrong was that I substituted gluten-free flour with coconut flour. But I think I should have stuck to gluten-free flour because I don't think the coconut was stable enough or provided enough structure in order to form the pancakes, because they sort of like disintegrated and melted. So this is where it all went wrong when I added in that coconut flour. And I thought it was strangely really tough, so I added more milk, but that did not do anything. And you can see how they look like on the stove. They looked okay, but when I tried to flip them, that is when the real disaster happened. So after deciding that was an epic fail, I went ahead and tried something else, which was like trying to make pancake muffins out of this batter. So I baked them off at 350 for about 15 minutes, topped it with some walnuts and my favorite granola butter, which kind of saved it. It was still a little mushy, but it was a little bit more edible. Okay, so tonight's dinner was phenomenal and easily one of my favorites. Basically, it's a barbecue bean bowl made with coleslaw as well as cornbread, all vegan, which is amazing. In order to make the coleslaw, you'll use cashews, which I think is actually really unique, and then kind of toss it up with the shredded cabbage and shredded carrots and let that sit in the fridge until you complete everything else for this vegan menu. In order to make the vegan cornbread, we're going to start off by making some buttermilk. So pour in some Oatly with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Set that aside while we focus on the aquafaba or chickpea juice. Whip that up, add in your sugar until stiff peaks form. And then once you've got stiff peaks, go ahead and fold it into your cornmeal mixture. Once again, all these recipes will be listed in the description box below, so don't worry, I know I'm omitting a lot of details. Alright, so back to this cornbread, we're going to go ahead and fold together the aquafaba with the cornmeal mixture, and make sure you don't lose too much air because that's how you're going to get that volume in the cornbread. Alright, so for the chili, I kind of took the cheaters root out and I just bought canned vegetarian chili beans, and then I added in some red onions and red bell peppers and then just let that come to a boil on the stove. Super simple, super easy. I actually don't know if it's 100% vegan, but you know, I'm trying my best here, guys. I tried my best. So the whole spread looked absolutely delicious. I got a little bit of the beans, I got a little slice of cornbread, as well as a nice chunk of coleslaw. And then I went ahead and topped my beans with a bit of the Miyoko's cheddar cheese as well. I really couldn't believe that this entire menu was vegan. It just kind of blew my mind, but it tasted so great as well, so I was really impressed. And I think the coleslaw and that acidity sort of balanced out the heavier, denser items like the cornbread and the chili. Alrighty guys, we are almost towards the end of the week at day 6. So for lunch, it was the weekend, we decided to treat ourselves and we went to a restaurant called Merit Vegetarian Restaurant, which serves all entirely vegan and vegetarian Viet food. So we had a Vietnamese crepe dipped in some sauce as well as wrapped in a lettuce leaf. We had orange chicken and then a clay pot rice bowl, all of which I would highly recommend. For snack, I had to satisfy my sweet tooth, so that meant I dug into the Coconut Bliss ice cream, which was the chocolate peanut butter flavor that I snagged from Sprouts. I will say that this wasn't my favorite ice cream because I could taste a good chunk of that coconut milk. The chocolate was a little bit overpowering and the peanut butter swirls were super tough, like break your tooth tough. Okay, so this dinner was actually really bomb. I made these chickpea sliders from Love and Lemons, and super simple. Basically all you do is take your canned garbanzo beans, add some avocado, chopped walnuts, chopped onions, chopped cilantro, chopped garlic, toast up some vegan buns, so I just used some Dave's bread and I toasted that up. Use a buttercup lettuce and then top it with that chickpea spread, and then go ahead and dig into these sliders. They look deceivingly simple, but they taste really amazing and really delicious. I could eat a bunch of these bad boys. Day 7 started off with a matcha latte, completely vegan of course, made with my one and only true love, Oatly, which is the only oat milk I would recommend. Then for dinner, I went up to the city in San Francisco and I treated myself to Hinodea's creamy vegan ramen. This ramen was really delicious because it was made with spinach noodles, had a lot of spinach, bamboo, some tofu, as well as kombucha squash, and it was made with a soy milk broth, so it was very creamy and I would highly recommend if you're in San Francisco.
Anyway, that wraps up the 7 days of veganism that I had, and I guess I can share some final thoughts with you guys about how the veganism went and how I felt by the end. I will say that being vegan is probably different for everyone and affects everyone's bodies differently. For me, by the end of the week, I actually was getting severe headaches and just didn't feel that great. I had low energy and I wasn't sure if that was because I was stressed at work and I was also staying late to finish up some projects. So it could have been that rather than the veganism itself. But you know, towards the end of the week on Saturday, I was just feeling not so great about myself and feeling really lethargic and tired, more so than usual. But then on Sunday, I woke up with a sudden burst of energy and I was ready to go. So I don't know really what it was. I mean, I wasn't a perfect vegan the entire week either, so I can't say that the veganism was the only thing that could have impacted my energy levels, and I wasn't getting enough sleep as I normally do. So there are a lot of different factors that play into this. But I will say that I don't know if veganism is right for me, and I don't know if I will continue that. I definitely want to try and incorporate vegan meals or maybe vegetarian meals into my diet more frequently, but I don't think I can hold myself to a vegan diet. Major props to the people who can. It requires lots of discipline, and I unfortunately just do not have that discipline. So ultimately what I gathered from this week of veganism veganism is that veganism may not be right for me, but it's definitely not as bad as I thought it would be. I wasn't craving meat at all. If anything, I was pretty content with the foods that I was eating. There were some failures in terms of things that I tried to make that didn't taste that great, but there were also some major successes. So it all really depends. And I would highly recommend you guys check out some of the recipes that I made in the description box down below, because there are some really, really tasty vegan meals out there. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this little glimpse into my vegan diet. I will not be doing it anytime soon, but it was definitely a fun week where I learned a lot. So thanks, guys.